Marriage is like blackjack. The house always wins. Unless you're the dealer, and right now I'm watching my wife stack the deck against me. My name is Jack Russell, and yeah, I've heard every dog joke in the book. 38 years old, ex-military turned casino security consultant in Atlantic Harbor, a fictional coastal city that's equal parts glamour and grime. I've got a sharp eye for spotting cheaters, which makes what happened next particularly ironic. Jack, we need to talk. Cassie stood in our kitchen doorway, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the frame. At 36, she still turned heads with her blonde hair and curves that she worked hard to maintain. Real estate had been good to her. Or maybe it was the other way around. Go ahead, I said, not looking up for my coffee. The morning news droned about another casino scandal downtown. My boss would love that. I want us to take a vacation, seaside resort, just you and me. Her voice had that practiced sweetness she used with difficult clients. I finally looked up. Since when do you want alone time with me? She flinched, but recovered quickly. Don't be like that. We need this, Jack. One last shot at romance. One last shot. Interesting choice of words. Fine, I said. When? This weekend. I already booked it. Of course she did. Cassie always moved fast when she wanted something. It's how she'd landed 3 major property deals last month, and apparently how she planned to handle whatever this was. The resort was one of those places that looked better in brochures. Peeling paint disguised as rustic charm, and a pool that had seen better decades. But the beach was nice, and Cassie seemed genuinely excited as we checked in. This is perfect, she said, squeezing my arm. Just what we needed. That first night at dinner, I noticed him. Tommy Costa, 25, and built like he lived at the gym. Local boy made good, or at least made visible. He worked as a personal trainer at the resort's fitness center, and every woman in the dining room tracked his movements like he was prime real estate, including my wife. Earth to Jack, Cassie laughed, but her eyes kept drifting to Tommy's table. You're in your own world tonight. Just thinking about work, I lied. In the military, you learn to read people fast. Cassie was broadcasting signals louder than a casino's neon signs. The next morning, she suggested we split up for a few hours. You hate shopping, and I saw some cute boutiques in town. Why don't you hit the beach? I agreed, then doubled back to watch her through the lobby windows. She didn't go shopping. She went straight to the gym. That afternoon, she was glowing in a way I hadn't seen in years. Over drinks at the beach bar, she kept checking her phone and smiling at messages. Having fun? I asked. The best, she said. Then she leaned forward and her expression shifted to something I'd never seen before, a mix of guilt and defiance that made my stomach drop. Jack, I need to tell you something. It's about my dream. I set down my beer. Your dream. I've always fantasized about having an affair, just once. A passionate, meaningless fling with someone young and exciting. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. It won't affect us, I promise. It's just something I need to get out of my system. The words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, families laughed and played in the surf, completely unaware that my world was imploding. You're telling me you want to cheat on me, I said slowly. I'm telling you I'm going to, tonight, with Tommy. Her voice was steady, almost clinical. I thought you deserved to know. How generous of you. She missed my sarcasm entirely. I knew you'd understand. You're so practical about everything. Practical, right. Like I should be practical about my wife planning to screw the local stud while we're on our romantic getaway. Where? I asked. His apartment. It's just above the surf shop. She was actually blushing. Jack, this doesn't change anything between us. It's just physical. I stood up, my chair scraping against the deck. Enjoy your dream, Cassie. I walked away before she could respond, my mind already shifting into operational mode. 20 years in the military teaches you to compartmentalize, to think strategically even when your personal world is burning down. Back in our room, I called Joey Martinez, my old army buddy who now ran a private investigation business. I need a favor, I said when he picked up. Jack, you sound like heck. Feel worse. Can you run a background check on someone named Tommy Costa, personal trainer, works at the Seaside Resort? Sure, but why? My wife just told me she's going to sleep with him tonight. As a favor, to herself. There was a long pause. Jesus, Jack, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Get me information. And Joey, I'm going to need some equipment. What kind of equipment? The kind that records video in low light. 2 hours later, Joey arrived with a care package that would make any surveillance professional weep with joy. Micro cameras, audio equipment, and a tablet for real-time monitoring. "You sure about this?" he asked as we set up outside Tommy's apartment. "She said it was her dream," I replied, adjusting the camera angle. "I want to make sure she remembers every detail." At 9 p.m. sharp, Cassie arrived. She'd changed into a dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tommy answered the door shirtless, and even from across the street I could see Cassie's reaction. She practically melted into him. I recorded everything. Not the private parts, I'm not a monster, but the before and after. Her nervous laughter, his cocky grin, the way she checked her wedding ring before taking it off and dropping it in her purse. When she emerged 2 hours later looking disheveled and satisfied, I was already back at the hotel. I'd transferred half our joint savings to my personal account and canceled her credit cards. She stumbled in at midnight, reeking of cheap cologne and love. "How was your dream?" I asked from the chair by the window. She froze. "Jack, I hope it was worth it, because checkout is in 6 hours and you're paying for your own ride home." "What do you mean?" I held up my phone, showing her bank account balance. 0. "You wanted to play games, Cassie. Let's see how good you are at them." Her face went white. "You can't do this." "I just did. Sweet dreams." Welcome to the bachelor pad. 1 man, 2 goldfish, and a pile of legal forms that could choke a divorce lawyer. I'd been home for 3 days when Cassie finally showed up. She'd managed to get back somehow, probably called her sister for money, but the damage was done. Word travels fast in a town like Atlantic Harbor, especially when it involves a real estate agent's public meltdown at a seaside resort. "Jack, please," she said, standing in my living room like a stranger. "We need to talk." We talked, at the beach bar. "You told me about your dream, remember?" She flinched. "It was a mistake, a stupid, meaningless mistake. No, it was a choice, a calculated decision you made after booking the room, packing the dress, and planning the whole weekend around it." I'd had 3 days to think, and thinking was dangerous for Cassie. I'd already filed for divorce, changed the locks, and hired Joey as my official private investigator. "You're ruining our family," she said, tears starting. "What about Sophie?" Our 11-year-old daughter was staying with my mother until this mess sorted itself out. Sophie was sharp as a tack and anxious by nature. She didn't need to see her parents' marriage explode in real time. I'm protecting Sophie from having a mother who thinks adultery is a hobby. Cassie's tears dried up fast. "You self-righteous bastard. Like you're perfect." I never claimed to be perfect, but I also never screwed someone else while wearing my wedding ring. She left after threatening to take me for everything I had. I almost laughed. Good luck with that, sweetheart. The next morning, Joey showed up with coffee and a thick file. "Your boy Tommy is a piece of work," he said, spreading photos across my kitchen table. 3 DUIs, 2 assault charges that got dropped, and a pattern of dating women old enough to be his mother. Rich women? Rich, lonely women. He's got a system. Meets them at the gym, plays the sensitive young man card, then drains them dry before moving on. I studied the photos. Tommy with different women at expensive restaurants, Tommy driving cars that cost more than most people's houses, Tommy looking very comfortable spending other people's money. What about Cassie? She's not his usual type, not rich enough, for one thing, but she's been bragging about you to anyone who'll listen. Your job at the casino, your military pension, the house. Joey shook his head. I think she was his entry point to bigger game. That stung, but it also clarified things. Cassie hadn't just cheated. She'd been played, and now she was trying to play me. "Time to level the playing field," I said. My first move was simple but effective. I created a fake social media account and joined the local gossip groups where Cassie's friend Mia held court. Mia was 35, single, and jealous of anyone who had what she wanted. She also had the biggest mouth in 3 counties. I posted a carefully crafted message. Heard through the grapevine that a certain local real estate agent got stranded at a resort without money after her husband found out about her vacation activities. Anyone else hear about this? Within hours, Mia had shared it with her own commentary, and by evening it was making the rounds of every social circle in town. Cassie's phone was probably melting from all the calls, but that was just the appetizer. Tommy worked out at Gold's Gym downtown. the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business. I waited until prime time, 6 p.m., when the after-work crowd was in full swing, then made my entrance. He was at the squat rack, showing off for a couple of middle-aged women who were clearly more interested in his form than their own. Perfect. "Tommy Costa?" I called out, loud enough for half the gym to hear. He looked up, and I saw recognition flicker across his face. "Yeah? Jack Russell, Cassie's husband." I walked closer, noting how his audience was suddenly paying very close attention. "Wanted to thank you for the other night." His face went red. "Look, man, I don't know what—" "Sure you do. My wife told me all about her dream vacation, very detailed description." I smiled, but there was nothing friendly about it. "She especially liked how you kept checking your phone during, something about making sure your other girlfriend didn't find out." The women behind him exchanged glances. One of them looked familiar. I'd seen her in Joey's photos. "You're crazy," Tommy said, but his voice cracked. "Maybe, but I'm also thorough." I pulled out my phone and opened the video I'd edited together. Nothing explicit, just Cassie entering and leaving his apartment, with timestamps. "Funny thing about dreams, sometimes they turn into nightmares." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Tommy, you might want to check your gym locker. I think someone left you a present." I'd gotten to the gym 2 hours early and paid a janitor $50 to let me into the locker room. Tommy's designer gym bag now contained a small bottle of skunk oil that I'd accidentally spilled all over his clothes and protein powder. The screaming started about 10 minutes after I left. Joey was waiting in my car, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. "Did you see his face when you mentioned the other girlfriend?" "Which one?" He went through about 6 different expressions. "The blonde by the weight machine. That's Patricia Morrison. 62 years old, owns 3 restaurants, and according to my sources, she's been paying Tommy's rent for the past 4 months. Not anymore, I'm betting." We drove past Tommy's apartment an hour later. His car was in the parking lot, but all 4 tires were flat, and someone had keyed cheater into the paint on both sides. "Think that was Patricia?" Joey asked. "Or one of the others. Word spreads fast in the cougar community." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're going to pay for this." I showed it to Joey. "Tommy? Probably. What are you going to do?" I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, "Already did. Check your bank account." I hadn't touched his bank account, of course, but I'd bet money that Patricia had, and probably the others too. Rich women don't like being played, and they have resources that make my little pranks look like amateur hour. Sure enough, my phone rang 5 minutes later. "You son of a witch!" Tommy's voice was shaking with rage. "She cleaned out my account. All of them did." "That's terrible," I said. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to help my wife live out her fantasy. This isn't over." "You're right. It's just getting started." I hung up and turned to Joey. "Ready for phase 2? "What's phase 2? "Cassie's about to discover that actions have consequences, and I'm about to become the best dealer this town has ever seen. Karma's a bodybuilder, and she just started her workout routine. By the end of the week, Cassie's social life had imploded like a controlled demolition. Mia, her supposed best friend, had turned the affair into primetime entertainment for the local gossip network. Every coffee shop, yoga class, and book club in town was buzzing with the story of the real estate agent who got stranded at a resort after cheating on her military veteran husband. The beautiful thing about small-town gossip is that it grows like compound interest. By the time the story made its 3rd round, Cassie had supposedly been caught with 3 different men, stolen money from clients, and been arrested for public indecency. None of it was true, but truth is a luxury item in the gossip economy. I was at the casino reviewing security footage from the previous night when my boss walked in. Frank Torino was 65, built like a refrigerator, and had connections that made smart people nervous. He'd hired me because military security training translated well to casino work, and because I could spot trouble before it started. "Heard you're having domestic issues," he said, settling into a chair that groaned under his weight. "Nothing that affects my work." "Good, because I've got a situation that requires your particular skills." He slid a folder across my desk. "We're hosting a charity event next weekend. High roller crowd, lots of publicity. I need security that can handle rich people with attitudes." I opened the folder and almost laughed. The charity was for military veterans, and the guest list read like a who's who of Atlantic Harbor's social elite. including several names I recognized from Joey's investigation into Tommy's sugar mama network. I'll handle it personally, I said. Figured you would. Oh, and Jack, if your wife shows up causing trouble, she becomes a security problem. Handle it accordingly. Frank left, and I immediately called Joey. Remember those photos of Tommy with his various girlfriends? Yeah, what about them? How would you like to attend a charity event next weekend? Black tie, open bar, and a target-rich environment. I'm listening. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The charity event would bring together Tommy's entire network of former benefactors in one room. All I had to do was make sure they compared notes. But first, I had to deal with Cassie's latest attempt at damage control. She'd started a whisper campaign of her own, painting herself as the victim of a manipulative, controlling husband who'd driven her to seek comfort elsewhere. It might have worked, except she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd tried to drag my military service into it. He came back from overseas different, she'd told her hairdresser, knowing the story would spread. Cold, violent, I was afraid for my safety. The problem with lying about a veteran's service record is that veterans talk to other veterans, and we don't appreciate stolen valor or false accusations. Within 24 hours, I had a dozen calls from guys I'd served with offering everything from character witnesses to less legal forms of support. I declined the less legal offers, but I did accept help from Danny Morrison, Patricia's son as it turned out, and a Marine who'd done 2 tours in the Middle East. My mom's been crying for 3 days, he told me over beers at Murphy's Pub. That little bastard took her for 40 grand before you exposed him. Sorry to hear that. Don't be. She needed to learn that lesson, and you probably saved her from losing a lot more. He took a long pull from his beer. But I hear your wife is spreading stories about your service. People talk. Yeah, well, people also listen, especially when a Marine tells them what really happened overseas. His smile was sharp as broken glass. Funny how memory works. Sometimes people remember things that never happened, and sometimes they forget things that did. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to. By the end of the week, Cassie's narrative had shifted from volatile veteran to ungrateful wife, and her support network had evaporated like morning fog. Meanwhile, Tommy was discovering that being a social pariah in a small town was expensive. Without his network of wealthy girlfriends, he couldn't afford his apartment, his car payments, or his gym membership. He'd moved back in with his mother and was working construction for minimum wage. But he wasn't done fighting. I was leaving the casino after a late shift when he stepped out of the shadows near my car. He'd lost weight and his gym-perfect physique was already starting to soften around the edges. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't. You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life. I just provided the lighting. He stepped closer and I could smell alcohol on his breath. I could ruin you too, you know. Tell everyone what really happened that night. Go ahead. Tell them how you screwed my wife while she was wearing her wedding ring. I'm sure that'll win you lots of sympathy. There's more to it than that. Is there? Because from where I stand, you're a 25-year-old loser who preys on lonely women for money. My wife was just another mark. That hit home. His face twisted with rage, and for a moment I thought he might actually swing at me. But Tommy was a predator, not a fighter, and predators only attack when they have the advantage. This isn't over, he said. You're right. The charity event is this weekend, and guess who's going to be there? All your former girlfriends, comparing notes about the sweet young man who broke their hearts and emptied their bank accounts. He went pale. I can't what? Invite paying guests to a public charity event? Provide security for wealthy donors who might be concerned about their safety? I smiled. Tommy, I'm just doing my job. He backed away, but I wasn't done. Oh, and Tommy, if you come anywhere near my daughter, my house, or my family, you'll discover that I learned more than just security work in the military. Are we clear? He nodded and stumbled away into the night. Joey was waiting for me at home with Chinese takeout and updates. Cassie tried to crash the casino today, he said around a mouthful of lo mein. Security turned her away, but she made a scene in the parking lot. Something about demanding to see you. What kind of scene? The kind that involves screaming about her rights as your wife and threatening to call the police. Frank's got it on video. I thought about that. Send me a copy. Why? Because Cassie's about to learn that public meltdowns in casino parking lots become evidence in divorce proceedings. The charity event was 3 days away, and I had one more card to play. Cassie's real estate license was up for renewal, and her recent behavior had attracted attention from the state licensing board. A few anonymous tips about her professional conduct, combined with the video evidence of her casino parking lot performance, would be enough to trigger an investigation. In real estate, reputation is everything, and Cassie's reputation was about to become a cautionary tale. "You're enjoying this," Joey observed. "You bet I am. She bet our marriage on a roll of the dice. Time to show her how the house always wins." The charity event was black tie perfection, complete with champagne fountains, a string quartet, and enough old money to buy a small country. I stood near the entrance in my best suit, watching Atlantic Harbor's elite file past while my security team positioned themselves around the ballroom. Patricia Morrison arrived fashionably late, wearing diamonds that probably cost more than Tommy's annual income. She was accompanied by two other women I recognized from Joey's files, Margaret Chen, who owned a chain of boutique hotels, and Victoria Santos, whose late husband had left her a shipping fortune. The three widows had clearly been talking. "Mr. Russell," Patricia approached me with a smile that could cut glass. "I wanted to thank you for your service, both military and community service. Just doing my job, ma'am." "Yes, well, some jobs are more important than others." She glanced around the room. "I don't suppose that young man will be attending tonight?" "Tommy Costa? I doubt he can afford the ticket price." "Pity. We had so much we wanted to discuss with him." Margaret Chen joined us, her expression equally predatory. "Patricia tells me you're recently divorced." "Separated. The divorce isn't final yet." "How unfortunate. I hope it wasn't too traumatic for your daughter." I'd learned that Margaret had 3 grown children and 6 grandchildren. Her maternal instincts were apparently as sharp as her business sense. "Sophie's resilient. She's staying with her grandmother until things settle down." "Smart girl. Children always know more than we think they do." Victoria Santos appeared at Margaret's elbow, completing the triumvirate. "Ladies, I believe our table is ready." As they moved away, Patricia turned back. "Russell, if you ever need references for anything, employment, character witnesses, that sort of thing, please don't hesitate to ask." I was still processing that offer when Frank appeared beside me. "Making friends?" he asked. "Making allies. There's a difference." "Good. Because your wife just pulled into the parking lot." I looked through the lobby windows and saw Cassie's car. She was dressed to end in a red dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with whatever credit she'd managed to scrape together. "She's not on the guest list," I said. "Nope, which makes her a trespasser if she tries to enter." "Let her try, but have the cameras ready." Cassie made it exactly 12 feet into the lobby before hotel security stopped her. From my position by the ballroom entrance, I could see everything but not hear the conversation. Her body language told the story, demanding, entitled, increasingly agitated, as she was politely but firmly refused entry. Then she spotted me through the glass doors. The explosion was magnificent. She pushed past security, burst through the doors, and marched across the ballroom in her heels, like a one-woman army. Conversation stopped, heads turned, and I could practically hear the gossip networks activating. "Jack!" she screamed, loud enough to be heard over the string quartet. "We need to talk." "Ma'am, you need to leave," I said calmly, noting that my security team was already moving into position. "Don't you ma'am me. I'm your wife. You're my estranged wife, and you're trespassing at a private event." She looked around the ballroom, taking in the shocked faces and raised phones. Half the room was recording her meltdown for posterity. "These people need to know what kind of man you really are," she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "Please enlighten them. You're vindictive, controlling, and you drove me into the arms of another man with your coldness." Patricia Morrison's laugh was like crystal breaking. "Oh, my dear, we know all about the other man." Cassie spun around, recognizing the voice but not immediately placing the face. "Excuse me? Tommy Costa, sweet boy, expensive tastes." Patricia's smile was razor sharp. "We've all made his acquaintance." The color drained from Cassie's face as she realized who she was talking to. Margaret and Victoria flanked Patricia like elegant vultures, their combined net worth probably exceeding the GDP of small nations. That's not," Hissy stammered. "Not what, dear? Not the young man who convinced you that your marriage was loveless? Not the charming trainer who made you feel special and desired?" Victoria's voice was silk over steel. "We've all heard that story before." The ballroom was dead silent, except for the soft whir of phone cameras. Cassie looked around desperately, but there was nowhere to run and no one to help her. You don't understand, she said weakly. We understand perfectly, Margaret said. You're another victim of a professional con artist. The only difference is that you were married when you fell for it. That's enough, I said, stepping forward. Ma'am, you need to leave now, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Cassie looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, Jack. Yes, it is. Security escorted her out while 300 of Atlantic Harbor's most influential citizens watched and recorded. By morning, the video would be all over social media with captions like, Real estate agent's public meltdown, and When keeping it real goes wrong. Joey appeared at my elbow as the crowd began to disperse. Well, that was entertaining. Phase 1 complete. How's our boy Tommy doing? Funny you should ask. He's been trying to get a job at every gym in a 50-mile radius. Turns out his reputation precedes him. Shame. Gets better. His mother kicked him out yesterday. Apparently, she got tired of him drinking her wine and bringing home different women every night. Where's he staying? Motel 6 on Route 9, the one with the hourly rates. I thought about that. Tommy was broke, homeless, and desperate. In my experience, desperate men made stupid decisions. Double the surveillance on my house, I said. And Sophie's school. You think he'll try something? I think he's got nothing left to lose, which makes him dangerous. I was right. 3 nights later, my security system triggered at 2 a.m. I'd invested in a top-of-the-line setup after the divorce proceedings started. Cameras, motion sensors, silent alarms, and a few special features that weren't exactly standard consumer equipment. Tommy had parked 2 blocks away and approached through the neighbor's backyard, probably thinking he was being clever. But military paranoia dies hard, and I'd been expecting him. I watched on my phone as he tried to jimmy the back door, then gave up and broke a window. The moment he stepped inside, the house lit up like a Christmas tree. Strobes, sirens, and a recorded message that announced, "This is a private residence. You are trespassing." The police have been notified, but the real surprise was the dye pack I'd rigged to the kitchen door. Tommy got 3 steps into my house before he was covered head to toe in bright purple paint that would take weeks to wash off. He stumbled around blind for 30 seconds, knocking over furniture and cursing, before the paint fumes drove him back outside. By then, my neighbors were awake, their porch lights were on, and Mrs. Henderson from next door was filming everything from her bedroom window. Tommy made it to his car looking like a rejected member of a punk rock band, and I had the whole thing recorded in high-definition video. The police arrived 10 minutes later, but Tommy was long gone. I gave them the video, filed a report, and by morning, "Purple burglar fails at break-in" was trending on local social media. Joey called me at work the next day, laughing so hard he could barely talk. "Did you see the news?" "Which part?" "Tommy got arrested trying to buy paint thinner at Home Depot. Apparently, the cashier recognized him from the video and called the cops. Outstanding. Gets better. Cassie was with him." That stopped me cold. What? She was waiting in the car when the police showed up. Turns out she's been letting him stay at her apartment since his mother kicked him out. I thought about the implications. She's harboring a fugitive who broke into my house. Technically, he's not a fugitive anymore. He's in custody. But yeah, she was definitely aiding and abetting. Send me everything you have. Photos, video, documentation. What are you planning? Cassie wanted to play games. Time to show her what happens when amateurs challenge professionals. The final phase was about to begin. Tommy's arrest made the front page of the Atlantic Harbor Gazette, complete with his purple-stained mugshot and a detailed account of his failed break-in attempt. The headline read, "Local man caught purple-handed in botched burglary." But the real story was buried in the 3rd paragraph. Costa was accompanied by Cassie Russell, 36, a local real estate agent who is currently involved in divorce proceedings with the homeowner. That single sentence destroyed what remained of Cassie's reputation and her real estate career. The state licensing board opened a formal investigation. Her brokerage suspended her pending the outcome, and her few remaining clients fled like rats from a sinking ship. I was reviewing security footage at the casino when Frank walked in with a newspaper and a grin. "Your ex-wife made the paper," he said. "Soon-to-be ex-wife," I corrected. "The divorce isn't final yet. Might want to expedite that. Word is she's broke and desperate." He was right. Joey's financial investigation showed that Cassie had burned through her savings, maxed out her credit cards, and was 3 months behind on her apartment rent. Tommy had been draining her dry just like he'd done to his other victims. She's going to make one last play, I told Joey over lunch. Desperate people do desperate things. What kind of play? The kind that involves Sophie. My daughter was still staying with my mother, but she'd been asking when she could come home. At 11, she was old enough to understand that her parents were getting divorced, but young enough to think she could somehow fix it. She called me last night, I admitted, wants to have dinner with both of us, says she has something important to tell us. Joey frowned. You think Cassie put her up to it? I think Cassie is running out of options and Sophie is the only card she has left to play. I agreed to the dinner, but I chose the location, Murphy's Pub, a family restaurant where I knew the staff and the security cameras worked perfectly. If Cassie wanted to make a scene, she'd do it in front of witnesses. Sophie was waiting at a corner booth when I arrived, looking small and nervous in her school uniform. She'd inherited my dark hair and sharp eyes, but she had her mother's stubborn chin. Hi, Dad. Hey, kiddo, how's school? Okay, I guess. Everyone keeps asking about the divorce. What do you tell them? That it's none of their business. She smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like me at that age. Grandma taught me that. Your grandmother is a wise woman. Cassie arrived 20 minutes late, looking harried and desperate. She'd lost weight and her usually perfect appearance was showing cracks, chipped nail polish, roots growing out, clothes that had seen better days. Sorry I'm late, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Traffic was terrible. Sophie looked between us nervously. I wanted us all to have dinner together because I have something to say. Go ahead, sweetheart, Cassie said, reaching across the table to squeeze Sophie's hand. I know you're getting divorced, and I know it's because Mom cheated on you, Dad. Cassie went pale. Sophie, honey. I'm not stupid, Mom. I heard you on the phone with Tommy. I saw the videos online. Everyone at school knows what happened. The restaurant suddenly felt very quiet. I could see other diners pretending not to listen while straining to catch every word. What I want to say is that I don't want to live with Mom anymore. The words hit Cassie like a physical blow. Sophie, you don't mean that. Yes, I do. You lied to Dad, you lied to me, and you brought that man to our house when Dad wasn't there. Sophie's voice was steady, but I could see tears in her eyes. I want to live with Dad. Honey, you're upset. I'm not upset, Mom. I'm disappointed. That single word, delivered in an 11-year-old's clear voice, cut deeper than any insult could have. Cassie started crying, ugly sobs that drew stares from across the restaurant. I made a mistake, she said. One mistake, and everyone is treating me like a criminal. You didn't make a mistake, Sophie said with devastating clarity. You made a choice, and then you made more choices, and now you're trying to blame everyone else for the consequences. I'd never been prouder of my daughter, or more heartbroken for her. No child should have to be that wise, that young. Sophie's right, I said quietly. You made your choices, Cassie. Now live with them. Cassie looked around the restaurant, taking in the stares and whispers, then back at Sophie and me. This is all your fault, Jack. You turned my own daughter against me. No, you did that yourself. She stood up abruptly, knocking over her water glass. Fine, you want her? You can have her. But don't come crying to me when you realize how hard it is to raise a child alone. I won't be alone, Sophie said. I'll have Dad. Cassie left without another word, and I watched through the window as she got into her car and drove away. Sophie slumped against the booth, suddenly looking very young and very tired. Are you okay? I asked. I will be. Are you? I will be too. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Cassie got nothing. No alimony, no property settlement, no custody. Her affair, combined with her harboring Tommy after his break-in attempt, had destroyed any legal standing she might have had. Tommy got 18 months in county jail for breaking and entering, plus restitution for the damages to my house. The purple dye had stained my kitchen floor, but I considered it a small price to pay for justice. The charity event video had gone viral, turning Cassie into a cautionary tale about the dangers of middle-aged infidelity. She'd moved back in with her parents in another state, where she was reportedly working at a discount clothing store and dating a manager at a tire shop. Joey stopped by my house on a Saturday afternoon to find me teaching Sophie how to change a tire in the driveway. Domestic bliss, he observed. Something like that. Any regrets? I thought about it while Sophie wrestled with a lug wrench. About the marriage ending? No. About the way it ended? No. About what Sophie had to go through every day? She seems okay. She's resilient like her old man. Speaking of which, Patricia Morrison called me yesterday. Apparently, she's looking for a new security consultant for her restaurants. Is she now? Seems she was impressed with your work at the charity event. Professional discretion, attention to detail, that sort of thing. I helped Sophie align the spare tire. Tell her I'll call her next week. Already did. You have an appointment Tuesday at 2. That evening, Sophie and I were sitting on the back porch watching the sunset when she asked, Dad, do you think Mom will ever forgive you? Forgive me for what? For not forgiving her. It was a complicated question from a complicated kid. I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm not sure it matters anymore. Why not? Because some things can't be forgiven. They can only be survived. She thought about that for a while. I'm glad we survived. Me too, kiddo. Me too. 6 months later, I was running security for Patricia's restaurant chain, dating a prosecutor I'd met through work, and Sophie was getting straight A's in her new school. We'd bought a house on the other side of town, with better security and a bigger yard for the dog Sophie had convinced me we needed. Tommy got out of jail and moved to Florida, where he was reportedly working construction and staying out of trouble. Cassie sent Sophie a birthday card but didn't include a return address. I was standing on the casino roof one evening watching the sun set over Atlantic Harbor when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I hope you're happy. I typed back, I am, thanks for asking. Then I deleted the number and went home to help Sophie with her math homework. She'd said it was her dream. Turns out I was living mine.